So welcome back to the Council Chamber. Please be seated. Okay, thank you. I will just run through some housekeeping prior to today's business of this extraordinary meeting. We're not expecting a fire drill, therefore if one sounds, please can you follow officers who will lead you to the nearest fire exit, where we will gather at an assembly point on Belief Square. Officers will assist members of the public who are in the public gallery. Members of the public are welcome but are reminded not to interrupt the proceedings, as disruption may result in removal from the public gallery. The rules of conduct for governing the meeting have been circulated to all members in advance of this meeting, and hard copies have been placed on your seats. Item number 1, our apologies for absence. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Apologies for absence this evening include Councillor Braley, Councillor J Prescott, Councillor E Rigby, Councillor Whittingham, Councillor G Davis, Councillor Guest and Councillor Ramsdale. Do we have any further apologies this evening? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Item number 2 are declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider relevant interest for the purpose of this meeting, and without any interest declared, members must leave the room during the relevant item. Please fill out the form on your agenda and return this to the Democratic Services officers at the end of the meeting. Item number 3, adoption of Places for Everyone plan. The Council's request to consider the adoption of the Places for Everyone plan, a joint development plan document for 9 Greater Manchester local authorities, that's Bolton, Bury, Manchester, Oldham, Rochdale, Salford, Trafford and of course Wigan, for the period 2022 to 2039. The report is set out in the agenda. I will now invite the portfolio holder for Planning, Environmental Service and Transport, Councillor Paul Prescott, to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Places for Everyone plan has been nearly 10 years in the making. Adopting this plan will ensure that we can retain control of our own destiny. Government has threatened to take over planning responsibilities for those districts that don't have an up-to-date plan. The alternative to adoption is what we have seen in other parts of the country, planning by appeal. That almost always results in worse outcomes and less ability for stakeholders to influence what happens. It also comes as a huge cost to the public purse and diverts our precious resources away from the things that are really important to us. But even without that consideration, important as it is, the plan is significant because it provides certainty to people who want to invest in our borough. It gives them clarity in terms of what development will be permitted and where, whether that be new homes, new businesses, or regeneration proposals in our town centres. That puts us at a huge advantage when businesses are looking at where they should grow and where they should create jobs, or housing providers are thinking about where to bring forward their next affordable schemes. Having a plan also gives certainty to our local residents about what will happen in their local area and gives them confidence that decisions will be made openly and transparently, and here in our borough rather than in the planning inspectorate in Bristol. The plan has been through an exceptionally rigorous process to reach this point. Initially, it was a plan for all 10 councils in Greater Manchester. It was then known as Greater Manchester Spatial Framework. More recently, and since 2021, it has been 9 councils after Stockport withdrew from the plan. There have been 6 main consultation stages, including 3 on full drafts of the proposal in 2016, 2019 and 2021. There has been a public examination which lasted for a full 2 years, with public hearings over 12 weeks in total during that time. Anyone that had commented on the draft plan had the right to appear in those hearings and to make their case to the independent panel of inspectors. As a result of the public examination, main modifications to the plan were subject to a final 6th main consultation in October and December of last year. After all that examination and deliberation, the inspectors responsible for the public examination have determined that, subject to inclusion of those main modifications, the plan is sound as required by legislation and national planning policy. It also complies with all relevant legal requirements. and it provides an appropriate basis for the planning of the 9 boroughs, including Wigan Borough. The inspectors are also satisfied that where necessary, the 9 councils have engaged constructively, actively, and on an ongoing basis in the preparation of the plan, and the legal duty to cooperate with other bodies on strategic cross-boundary issues have also been met. Understandably, a lot of focus during the preparation of the plan has been on the removal of 3 sites from our greenbelt, with policies allocating those sites for development. Members will be familiar with those 3 sites: at the M6 Junction 25 in Wigan for employment development, at north of Mossley Common for housing, and at west of Gibfield in Atherton for housing and employment. As a result of these changes, 55.7% of Wigan Borough will remain as Greenbelt on adoption of the Places for Everyone plan, compared to 56.6% now, a reduction of just 0.9% in the extent of that Greenbelt. It is understandably an issue of concern for people living locally to the three sites, which make up the 0.9%. That is being removed from the Greenbelt, and we are sensitive to those concerns. Through the rigorous process of producing this plan over 10 years, the requirement for Greenbelt land has been reduced significantly to the minimum possible, and these 3 sites have been determined as the best options for Greenbelt change. The plan also includes policies to ensure that the impact of these developments on the wider Greenbelt is minimised, and that the new Greenbelt boundaries in these areas will endure for long term. Mr. Mayor, this is far from being just a plan for Greenbelt, however. It is a plan for inclusive growth, for affordable housing, for reusing brownfield land, for moving to net zero, for protecting our environmental assets, and for securing funding and investment. Over half of all the new homes and over 2/3 of office developments across the 9 districts will be in the city centre and inner regeneration areas of Inner Manchester and Salford. There is a strong focus on town centres across the city region. In our borough, the plan proposes the construction of around 16,500 new homes by 2039. 9 in 10 of these will be on brownfield or other land that is not in the Greenbelt. The Wigan-Bolton Growth Corridor, which extends through the heart of the borough from the M6 to the M61, is identified as a regionally significant area of economic and residential development. This includes land at South Hindley, North Lee Park and west of Gibfield, with significantly improved transport connectivity within the corridor. There is a strong focus on jobs in growing sectors, including in Wigan and the other northern districts where the need is greatest. There is also a real emphasis on regeneration of our urban areas and historic environment and on brownfield land. The plan will assist greatly in bidding for regeneration and brownfield land funding. And the plan sets a clear framework for integrating land use and transport, with shared content between the plan and the Greater Manchester Transport Strategy 2040, ensuring that transport funding can be aligned to where it is needed to unlock growth. Running through all of these areas are the plan's policies on delivering net zero and on adapting to and mitigating the effects of climate change. A key role of the plan is to set the policy context for future local plan development across the 9 districts. The evidence base that has been prepared to inform the Places for Everyone plan can also inform those local plans. It is a far simpler situation to produce a local plan within the framework established by the Places for Everyone plan than it would be without the Places for Everyone plan. Our emerging Wigan Borough local plan will set more detailed policies on housing affordability, tenure and size, and identify and allocate sites as necessary to address this requirement. The Places for Everyone plan is important because it provides a major update to our planning policy framework in the Wigan Borough. Our current plan is over 10 years old, with part of it nearly 20 years old. It is vital that we have an up-to-date plan to keep control of our own destiny and to reflect the circumstances that we find ourselves in. As a borough, we know we have challenges, but we also have massive opportunities. The Places for Everyone plan will help give us ability to seize those opportunities and to shape development and investments so that it benefits our residents. I would like to finish by saying thank you to everyone who has contributed to the process of preparing the Places for Everyone plan, including all of those residents who have contributed through the consultation. On the basis of all that I have just said, on all that is set out in the report that is before you, I ask Council to approve the recommendations set out in the report and adopt the Places for Everyone plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Prescott. Is the report seconded?
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Leader. Do any other members wish to contribute to the debate? Next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point out that for the last 10 years, a farmer in Lawton has been saying, refusing to sell his land. And for 10 years, the council have continued to put his plot of land in the spatial and now the places, and this is why I'm not voting for this. The farmer at Lawton has been harassed for 10 years. He does not want to sell, and his plot of land should be taken out immediately. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, to begin with, this is just a plagiarised version of the Great Manchester Spatial Framework, and it's just been rebranded as 9 local plans. So, if I'm not mistaken, we currently have 2 plans in place at the moment, one in control by this very council, and the other, which is Places for Everyone, which is still under the control of Great Manchester Combined Authorities. Now, within this council summary report that members have been provided, I must point out it doesn't reflect the full impact of the Places for Everyone scheme. Within item 7.3 of the full report, within this report, it mentions that boosting transport connectivity within the Wigan-Bolton corridor. However, under the modifications in Appendix 1.2 of the full report, it is clear that these improvements are not so definitive as previously suggested. Under these modifications on page 65 of the full report, and I quote, new highway infrastructure will has been replaced with new highway infrastructure is intended to connect the M61 to the M6. And also, measures to improve the provision of bus services and to increase the use of rail lines will also be implemented, has now been replaced with, are also planned to be implemented. And I could go on and on with these modifications. Now, call me a sceptic, but we've gone from having a definitive transport plan and a transport strategy to cope with this unwanted influx of private dwellings to the promise of, we will try. In terms of the site west of Gibfield and Atherton, these wishy-washy promises will have a detrimental impact on our already congested roads. I'll quote again from the full report. The development of homes and employment uses would have a considerable impact on the traffic in the area, with some roads and roundabouts, such as the one at Gibfield Parkway, being already congested. The report identifies that the Places for Everyone will have an adverse impact on air quality and also will have a detrimental impact on the environment, plus the land itself for this site is classed as a wetland. Within page 147 of the Appendix 1.1 of the Inspector's report, the harm to the Greenbelt is also highlighted. Regarding the Greenbelt assessment, overall the site would be very harmful in the north, moderate to high in the central parcel, and moderate harm in the south. This relates to the Greenbelt purposes of urban sprawl, preventing towns from merging, which would be Atherton and West Horton, into one, and safeguarding the countryside from encroachment. Furthermore, development on this site would cause harm to the character and appearance of the area. Now, this is all directly taken from the full report. So I asked the question whether we want a concrete jungle for the next generation or green spaces for our next generation to enjoy. It is evident that we are taking in the population excess from the other nine boroughs as part of the Places for Everyone scheme, as the census data from 2021 from the Office of National Statistics does not support this mass urbanisation of the borough. In fact, we are building houses at twice the rate of what is needed. Additionally, as this is not part of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and is in fact a series of local plans, we are under no requirement to prioritise the needs of other councils over the needs of our very own residents. We need a local housing plan that prioritises local needs, and that should be social houses, not private houses. I fundamentally believe that the Places for Everyone scheme will be detrimental to the people of Wigan Borough. It will add to our already congested roads. The roads east of the borough are already at gridlocked at peak times, and this is highlighted within the full report. So why are we adding to this congestion and misery for our motorists? One may question if this is by design and whether this will be used in the future as a justification to bring back the clean air zone or maybe even a ultra-low emission zone. Why within the modifications has a definitive commitment to investing in public transport been replaced with promises that I fear will fail to materialise over time? We cannot and should not keep building on the Greenbelt, which goes against the environmental principles of the Places for Everyone scheme and this very council. Despite the aforementioned regarding the site west of Gibfield, and in fact that is on Greenbelt land, exceptional circumstances have been given to build being met. So today in this chamber, we've got the opportunity to represent the people, to do what's right for our towns, to do what's right for our communities. So please, when you vote on this tonight, put aside your political affiliations and vote for what's right for the people of this borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to be against this for the removal of the Greenbelt from the west of Guildfield in Abberton. You know, it were only 20 years ago we had a nice plan of the public park with the trees and the reseeding and everything, public right-of-ways, all on the site, what's being proposed. It's got protection for great crested newts. It's all here with Andy Burnham himself and ex-councillor Loudon, all waving the hats, and ex-leader. So I'm really concerned about this land, where it is, like Councillor Watson said, the congestion. You know, we've seen quite a lot of building in that side of Abberton, yeah, on brownfield sites where it should be built, but the removal from this Greenbelt, from this part of Abberton, is totally unacceptable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, can I take this opportunity just to say well done to Stockport Council? I hope you all agree with me. A council that'll actually step up to King Burnham. Because it seems to me, every single thing this guy says, you all just say, yeah. Andy says, jump, you say how I. He says, we want a clean air zone. You say, not a problem. The Labour Party will now tax the poor people who can't afford newer cars. So, Mr. Mayor, well done to Stockport Council. That's the sound bite for YouTube gone. Let's talk serious. Greenbelt. How can we say this is protecting Greenbelt if we're even going to build one house on Greenbelt? It's not protecting Greenbelt. It is a Greater Manchester vision, just like everything else, that this council finds itself falling in line with. What we need in Wigan more than anything is social and council housing. Now, I work on building sites, Mr. Mayor, every day. 90%, I'd say, of people who live in building sites in Wigan are from other towns outside of Wigan. Quite often, Manchester, Liverpool, we're a good commuting area with the motorway access we have. So the idea that we're building these houses for local people, local residents of Wigan, is nonsense. The idea that it's providing jobs, the subcontractors like me, they go from site to site. So we're not even giving permanent jobs. Yeah, it has an impact on people's incomes, but it's not the argument that we see in front of us. If we had putting this forward for ourselves with Home England money and social housing coming to some of these places on Greenbelt, you'd find you'd have a lot more support off residents. But the biggest hypocritical thing I see in this report is that you asked the residents. You did ask the residents, I remember. Do you remember all the different groups? There's a councillor in here who got sacked. He did a good job, by the way. I support him. Got sacked for coming to one of the opposition meetings, standing up for his residents in Winstanley by the former leader. There was groups set up everywhere. There was Facebook groups. This wasn't wanted by the people. Originally, you said, I think it was 25,000 houses you was going to build. People didn't want it. So you haven't done what Stockport Council did. They actually listened to the residents. Why can this council never put its residents' views forward? What we need to remember, each and every one of us in here, we don't come in here as self-important people who make decisions on what we think's best. We come in here as representatives of the people out there who put us in. So go out to your residents, speak to 50 of them and say, do you think this is a good idea? And if they say no, they're bloody well come in here and vote against it. Because otherwise what you are is you're following the political line. You're not following your residents. You're not God. I'm not God. Believe it or not, even Andy Burnham's not God. We are representatives of the people out there on the streets. And you know, each and every one of you, if you search your hearts and your souls, that residents do not want this. The point I was making before, the people who will live in these houses are not necessarily the people who need the houses most. There'll be people buying brand new houses with decent jobs. The people who really need homes at the moment is the 18,000 people on the council's waiting list who will not be able to afford any of these homes, Mr. Mayor. There is enough houses being built now for people who want new houses. We need social housing. Now, that isn't Wigan Council's fault that there's an house shortage. It's not. There's many, many factors. But there's only us that are going to do anything about it in Wigan, isn't there? So let's start putting as much effort into stuff like this as allocating sites that we maybe buy cheaper or we own, looking at how we get funding things like Homes England. Instead of borrowing £41 million this year to other councils, maybe invest that into building council homes. And guess what? You'll probably get a better return off the housing benefits than the 3% what's on the loans. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Moving to Councillor Fish now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to echo what Steve said. When will this council start listening to its residents? As Councillor Prescott said, there has been consultation, but this council does a consultation. It's not with the paperwork it's written on. It does it totally opposite. As he said, Stockport pulled out in 2020. We've had plenty of opportunity. I think we've had 5 opportunities to pull out. MPs and councillors only last year. They lobbied the Oldham and Bury Council to pull out of this plan. Again, Labour councils follow the party line. And even the deputy leader a couple of years ago stated that this plan will protect natural environment, but how can destroying greenbelt land protect natural environment? And even Lisa Nandy, when she was the Levelling Up Shadow Secretary, she stated, and I'll quote her, building on greenbelt land is the key to solving the country's housing crisis. Even Keir Starmer supports this plan, Andy Burnham supports this plan. And another point is this council doesn't listen. There was a petition with over 5,000 signatures. This council said 2,000 don't count because they don't live within the Wigan Borough. So again, time and time again, this council does not listen. And even with this plan, and I'll finish on this point, there's a farmer in my ward who's been farming for 40 years and he's been told he's 18 months to find a new farm. Now, if you can find a new farm within 18 months the size of his, and lastly, I've got a resident whose mum is scared because her mum's house is going to be pulled down and she's scared it's going to kill her. So if you vote on this tonight, then you're destroying our greenbelt land. The site in Balswood Common is 156 acres of greenbelt land. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gerrard's next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just pick up a few points. I take it everybody has read the report in full, you know, the inspector's report. Maybe not, I don't know. But if you look through that report, it mentions about Greenbelt land, Brownbelt land. Points 162 and 163 on that report, if you care to read it at some time if you, in your leisure. And it says there's more than enough adequate Brownbelt land within the spatial framework to use. But apart from Bury, Tameside and Trafford. So Wigan doesn't need to give up any Brownbelt land, Greenbelt land. We've just, only in the last month, solved in one vote in this chamber Salford's housing crisis by allowing 1,100 homes to be built on Greenbelt land at Morsley Common. Now, I don't know if you go through Boothstown at that time and what have you, but it's chaos. 50 minutes to get from Higher Green to Boothstown, the next town along, on a bus service. You're chalking the road. You say about emergency climate crisis and stuff like that. We have, but you're adding to it all the time. You mentioned about the last 10 years, about this being in the making. In that time, you've circled Wigan Town Centre, Lee Town Centre, with retail parks and supermarkets, which have killed the town centres dead. And you're on about regenerating them. That was prime brownfield land, what we could have built on there, on them lands, with the retail parks there, and still had a thriving town centre. It's lack of foresight again, and this is what this is. It's lack of foresight. We're going to give up urban sprawl. We're going to have our side of the borough at least. We're going to be West Horton. You could walk on the rooftops from West Horton to Boothstown by the time this is finished. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need to just re-look at this, look at our own local plans, and re-look at the brownfield land, what that is available. And rightly so, regenerate our town centres, but not at the cost of losing Greenbelt land. I'm all for getting social housing, but we need affordable housing. Only today, on Brownbelt land, I've noticed houses have gone up for sale, rent in Atherton, £1,500 per month. Who can afford £1,500 per month, I ask you? All that does is put up the rents in the local area, right? So that puts up, if you live in rented accommodation or social housing, not the council ones, or they charge 80% of the local rent at the time. So what's 80% of it? That's £800 a month for so-called affordable housing, what these developers are going to charge. So if this does go through, which is obviously will do, because you're all nodding donkeys, is just look at putting an amendment in about the affordable rent. Because if you allow adapters, places like that, they will just charge 80% of the local rent at the time. It needs to be somewhere in line with the council rent, what we pay now. It'll not be as cheap as the council rent, or whatever it is after next week, but have it in line, say 10-25% more than what the rent is. It needs to be capped. At the moment, if somebody who's going to move in next door to me, you're going to look at £160 a week, and that's supposed to be social housing. Then making decisions like this is putting all that up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to really reiterate what's been said. You're all Labour councillors in here, well, the vast majority of you, and you have to think why you went into this job. I get desperate families every week, and I'm sure most of you do as well. They can't afford the rents going up. There's no social housing for them. It's affecting the mental health, the children's mental and physical well-being. What are we here for, really? We're here for our own citizens of this town who are desperate for houses. We don't want to be a satellite of Manchester or just a suburb where lots and lots of expensive new houses are being built that people who live here cannot afford. I please ask you, think about what you're voting for and why you came into being a councillor. Please, we need more social housing and a proper affordable housing for all the desperate families in this town.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Leader, do you wish to use your right to reserve your right to speak?
Yeah, Mr Mayor. And first of all, I take offence at anybody calling me a nodding donkey. Because that's one thing I'm not. And there's a lot of other people in this room who have took offence at what you've said, Councillor Gerrard. Just bear that in mind. Can I just say that what we're trying to do here is protect what we want to deliver. This is not just about massive big housing. This is about housing across the board, what people need. People need a range of housing, and there's nothing more important to me at this moment in time than us trying to get our heads around social housing in terms of what we want to deliver. But another thing you always forget, you think there's some money tree somewhere and suddenly we can deliver all this. The answer to that is we can't. But this is about protecting what we have and delivering what is needed. It's not just about housing, it's about the place that we live in terms of industry, in terms of commerce, in terms of every opportunity that we should be giving, particularly the young people of this borough, a future. And when we start talking about Green Belt, the number of appeals that we fought trying to protect Green Belt is second to none. And it has been a massive part of what this council's always been about. This plan allows us to protect and deliver at the same time. And that is what you've got to remember. I don't think there's any point that you've brought up changes what this plan is about and what it wants to deliver. And what I will say to this council chamber, you need to support this plan, and the reason being because you want to protect the borough and deliver the borough that we see for the future. This is what this plan is about. So, Mr Mayor, I'm more than happy to once again second this.
Thank you. Councillor Prescott, do you want to sum up?
Very briefly, Mr Mayor, I agree entirely what the leader has said. If you read through the report, what I've read out tonight, either we take control of our own situation or we lose the right to make planning decisions here in this borough, because the government will most certainly do so. Mr Gove has already announced that. He's made it very, very clear through his own department. So you have a choice. Relinquish control of what is developed here, where it's developed here, what type of infrastructure we can bring into play, or vote for the plan. It's very simple. It's in your hands.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Prescott. So we'll move to the vote now. So all those in favour of accepting the recommendation as set out in the report, please show. Okay, thank you. All those against? Okay, thank you. Any abstentions? Okay, so the recommendation is approved. So that concludes business tonight, and thank you for your attendance.